What is going on? This is Michael Hacker with the Hacker Outdoors podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I am joined with Joey McCormack and Brian Hacker. We discuss Joey's most recent Santee Cooper tournament, as well as New Jersey musky fishing. We hope you enjoy, and without further ado, and ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you for joining the Hacker Outdoors podcast. I am joined by our co-host Joseph McCormack, Joey McCormack, and of course Brian Hacker over there in that Fly Bass Bros t-shirt and his New York Rangers hat today. Joe, you're looking very New England today, prep, we'll say. You've got the flowing
Yeah,
locks going, you've got your Vineyard Vines dress shirt on, and you had crab cakes for dinner.
that's called lax bro down here. So full lax bro. I had a function at my daughter's school today, so I had to dress somewhat like an adult. So that's what it is.
Well,
I wish I had a better story.
last week got a little away from us. We did one show. We're trying to do better. We got, personal lives sometimes that get in the way. Brian, had to wash his hair or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. But as you can see from the video here, Brian is growing a monster beard and mustache. Joe still can't do that. I've trimmed mine. Brian's growing his out because I grew mine out and then I trimmed mine for work. So Brian now is growing his out.
The point going.
We're going to try and keep this short and sweet today. We got an update on Joe. Joe had a tournament this weekend, and we'll talk a little bit about my musky fishing extravaganza this past weekend. So, Joe, take it away, man. What happened?
Yeah, we were down Santee Cooper fishing. The Cooper system, which Lake Marion, Lake Moultrie, and the Cooper River. It was the second BFL for the South Carolina division, and it was a good weekend. The bite was on. If nobody's ever been to Santee Cooper before, the amount of water you're allowed to fish is humongous. I can't even express it to you. If you're familiar with South Carolina at all, when you're going down 95, you'll cross one of the lakes, but literally that lake probably goes another 25, 30 miles east of 95, and it also goes almost all the way to the coast to when you get on the Cooper River and go to the ocean. So it's a huge lake system, river system. Me and my boater, we made the decision to run to the lower lake and fish a place called the Hatchery. The bite was really good there the day before. Unfortunately, when we got there Saturday morning, there was about 6, 7 other boats there at least. The bite kind of died off. I caught a lot of fish, just the size wasn't there. I did weigh a couple fish. I did move up one spot overall in the overall standings, the 33rd so far in 2 events. That's my overall ranking for the South Carolina division. We still have 3 more events to go. Mr. Brennan Gunther got a 9th.
I saw.
Him and his boater stayed on the upper lake, and that's where most of the big fish came from. Brendan actually, believe it or not, did not catch as many fish as I did. He caught 3 fish, and he weighed 3 fish for over, was it 13 pounds, 14 pounds? So
Wow.
a mammoth bag of fish.
Wow.
It was not even a bag, it was 3 fish.
3 fish, yeah.
So he is sitting in 2nd place overall so far for the season. So
wow,
we're both sitting in contention for Anglers of the Year. You can't complain. I mean, out of 250 guys to be sitting in 33rd, that's
huge.
Good for
that's
Brennan,
top.
man. Now, I know
Yeah.
Brian had some questions about your technique and what actually worked over there. We were kind of putzing around. So, Brian, I'll let you jump right in.
Yeah. So, first of all, what are the conditions like day 1 versus day 2? And then, what did you switch up at all?
There's only one.
Checked
This was only a 1 day.
1 day.
BFL.
Okay.
It was by the end of the day, it was 93 degrees and
93.
partly cloudy. Water temperatures. So the funny thing is, on the upper lake, the water temperatures where we were at were like 65, 66. So they were just kind of coming up to start doing their thing. I only saw 1 fish on the bed on the upper lake, but on the lower lake where Brennan was fishing, the temperatures were like 72, 74, and they were on beds, doing the love dance.
Doing the thing.
I mean, there was a difference between the two lakes, as there usually is.
Yeah.
When you fish, to be a boater or to fish a tournament on a body that big, it's a tough call. Our run in the morning was we probably ran an hour and 10 minutes a day. So, it's not like you can just go boom, 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 boom. I mean, if you're
No.
committing to go where we went, you're committing to go there. By the time we decided to leave there, I guess it was probably around like 11. By the time we got to the next spot we wanted to go to, we might have had like 20 minutes to fish before we had to be back in.
Mhm.
I would have made the same decision. I would have made it again because the night before in practice, every cast, you were just getting smoked by huge fish in the hatchery. It's a pretty well-known place up there. But
Yeah.
for some reason, we think maybe because of boat traffic, because like I said, when we got there, there's like 6 or 7 boats. Like the first place we went into, there was like this little, you can't really call it canal. I guess you could say canal. With sawgrass on both sides, and there was 3 boats in there with us, and it wasn't big at
Yeah.
all. By the time the end of the day came, I mean, there was probably 10 to 14 boats all through the hatchery, just whipping around and putting pressure on it. So overall, I mean, I still moved up in the points. Like
It's
I said,
huge.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I'm still
the goal.
in legitimate contention. I mean, I could still get the co-angler of the year. And I
Yeah.
also still have my Northeastern division too, so which hasn't started yet. But
When's that first weekend?
for the Northeastern division, it's April
Yeah.
17th,
A little later.
upper Chesapeake Bay. So, what, 2.5 weeks?
Hmm.
And that will be a whole, it's completely right now where the south is compared to where we're going to be when we start, as far as where the fish are and what the fish are doing, are going to be completely different.
Yeah.
They'll be pre-spawn. They won't really be close to spawn, I don't think. Yeah, the water temperature is nowhere near warm enough. So they'll be just coming into pre-spawn.
And you said spawning for them is around what temperature? 60.
If you Google it, they'll say like 60, they'll say like 66, 68 to like 73, 74, like tops of 74. Like really the magic number to my mind is like 68 to like 72, like in there. I mean,
Yeah,
you'll find them doing it like at 64, 65.
Yeah.
But
We're
they really,
way off on that. So,
Yeah.
we
We don't see that till May.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's a long ways off. The fish finder finally got that up and operational on the canoe, and where I was fishing for muskie the other day, it was showing 56. So
Yeah, no.
that was in the shallows.
So pre-spawn usually, when they say pre-spawn, they're usually talking water temperatures like 54 and up to that spawn number. That's right when the pre-spawn usually starts, like 55. Really, you really see it start kicking into full effect from what I've seen, like around 58 degrees, 57 degrees and up. And that's probably, the bay's not a deep body of water. I think the average depth of the Chesapeake Bay is like 12 feet throughout the whole thing. And still, I don't think the bay is anywhere close to there. Probably like same as you, like 55. I'd say to maybe find some spots in the 60s. I haven't been out there yet this year, but I was on the Potomac 2 weeks ago. I think the highest I saw was, what did I say, like 64.
Yeah.
And those were in creeks, shallow creeks, where obviously it's going to warm up quicker.
Yeah.
You got to remember, it's been a cold winter.
Yeah.
It's true.
So if we can just circle back on that, what we talked a little bit about last show about what you were going to be using to target. Were you right on the money? Would you say? Oh, can you hear me, Bri?
I hear you.
Yep. Joe, can you hear me?
There you are.
All right.
Yep.
I was saying, we were talking a little bit about technique and what you were going to be throwing. Did you stick with the plan, and did that work for you?
So my number one plan, which I'm not going to give up, I share it with Brennan, and I actually shared the bait, the exact bait I was going to use, and he smoked him on them. It's not something that 99% of people are going to be throwing down there. A lot of guys were flipping down there, and where we were, there's a lot of sawgrass, real thick sawgrass and real thick lily pads. So that flipping 3/8 weights with crawl style baits or beaver style baits with it, just punching, getting down in there and just like back and forth real quick. Some people are throwing chatterbaits, but then there's also cypress trees, like lanes of just lanes and lanes of cypress trees, where people will like skip Cincos down the lanes, or they'll throw spinner baits down the lanes, chatterbaits. That stuff came into play, yeah. A lot more plastics, I think, soft plastics weighed the most fish, whether it was like a flipping bite with like a crawl or a beaver style bait or a Cinco, or more of a presentation like that, from what I heard, weighed the most fish. Especially when they're on beds. But when fish are on beds, that's what they'll do. They'll find the bed, they'll flip like a Cinco, or they'll flip like usually it's like a Cinco or like a worm style bait onto the bed to get them to go after it. But yeah, mostly, like I said, most of the bags I know that got weighed in came in on plastics, whether it was, like I said, crawl beavers or like Cinco style baits.
So those of you fishing in the south this week, how about just stick with those techniques for the time being?
Well, if the wind would have kicked up, the chatterbait would have played more, or swim bait. Actually, I heard some guys were catch a lot. There was a club tournament out, a smaller club tournament, and the one guy called 10 times. He's fishing a swim bait on top of the water, like a topwater bait, like waking it, and he was smoking them. No,
I wouldn't have thought that.
Oh yeah, that's a huge thing down south. They'll throw skinny dippers, or they'll throw big easy swim baits.
Yeah.
And they'll wake them. They'll fish them on top, so the tail's like on top
Flap
of the water,
away.
almost like a whopper pop. Yeah.
I would think warmer water for that. That's actually funny. That's a good note.
Well, that lake is it's shallow. Like the deepest I fished all day was maybe 6 feet.
Oh
Maybe.
wow.
I would say most of the time it was between 2 and 4. It's pretty shallow fishing there. It's power fishing or flipping. You can really make anything work.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, we'll pivot for a second. So I took the godson Musky fishing, or I'm sorry, my nephew, not my godson, I'm taking him fishing this weekend, Musky fishing, and we took him out on the canoe, and we hit up a body of water here in Jersey that, I fished a few times. This is my second time targeting Musky directly. The fish of, what is it, the 10,000 casts. So wasn't really expecting to catch anything, but was hoping with the full moon and everything going on environmentally that it would be a pretty good shot of catching something. And it's the first time I was able to break out the fish finder and get to see how that works, right? So this body of water is pretty stocked with all sorts of types of fish, and specifically muskie and tiger muskie. And it's not a very big lake, like I was saying in the last show. It's decent size. But we got out there, and we were one of 2 people on the water. 2 people, the other people were bass fishing from kayaks and not having any luck whatsoever. I stood up on the canoe for a second just to take a look in the shallows. There's a whole back section that's maybe 2 feet deep, and you could see where they've started making beds. I would probably gather that it wasn't bass yet. That's probably the muskie and probably some of the other fish in the water, not necessarily the bass at this point.
I really don't think it was.
Yeah, but you could see them. You could see the bass holes, we'll say.
I would think like maybe musky. I don't.
Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about them and how they breed, or if they breed that way. I was reading that they male muskies at the end of spawning, they come out, and if you catch them, they're scarred up, because the part of the mating ritual is that the female just scratches them up, which is kind of crazy. So you see them.
Bass is the same thing.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I think
look at
I've
the fish,
always
the picture I posted. I don't know if you can see it on there. The tail, not only was it red, but it was like chewed. Like you could see where it was being chewed and bit.
See, I saw the red. I didn't see the chew there. Yeah.
Yeah, because the tail's kind of. Maybe if you look at Brendan's, maybe you could be able to see a little bit more. But yeah, they get chewed up pretty hardcore. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. So we tried everything we could. The fish finder was chiming every few seconds, somewhere in like the 10-foot range. So this lake has a section that's maybe 30 feet, 34 feet. And then as soon as you get to where the drop off is at about the 10-foot range, we just started seeing the bait bombs everywhere, right? Like just giant balls of bait. And on the fish finder, you just see these lines, these long lines on the outskirts. And I'm like, that is what we're targeting right there. That's the muskie or whatever else that's feeding on them, some big bass, like getting these fish to just form these piles. So we were casting everything we could down there, trying to get to them. And we had, the figure eight or the circle. We tried a few different techniques. We had few chase-ins, my nephew and I. It was 2. We couldn't get them to bite. Didn't slow down at all. Didn't stutter. Didn't freeze. Just no bites on that. But when we did have it out there, I had a big hit on one of the the bucktails that I was tossing out there, and it just, I don't know if I messed that up and didn't set it right or whatever, but just nothing. And he claims the same thing. But the muskie were hitting the surface. So every so often the sun would go behind the clouds, the wind would die down ever so slightly, and then all of a sudden you would just see the muskie crash the surface of the water and almost like flip. And I've never seen a kid get so excited to see a fish. I mean, he's never seen tarpon hit the air, right? But watching these massive, like 30 to 40-inch fish jump out of the water and crush something. And then, of course, you throw right there as soon as you see them, and they're already gone. But it was pretty cool. Headed back there on Saturday. That should be maybe hour 300 for me at this point, but or 300 casts. So maybe we'll land something this weekend. I'm hopeful. We're gonna try. The guy at the dock at the end said he did catch a young muskie on a drop shot rig. So, or no, not a drop shot, or a Ned rig. I said to you, right, Joe?
Yeah, Ned rig.
So I'm gonna set up the my finesse rod with that and give that a whirl on top of doing the swim baits and everything else. I had to place an order because we did lose one of my bucktails and one of my swim baits because of malfunctions with one of my rods that's now being trashed. But all in all, a good day on the water, man. Just always fun. It's difficult on the canoe, right? Like you're cruising along and you think you're in a good spot, and then the wind picks up ever so slightly and you are out of position. So I spent a lot of the time trying to keep us in position while he was fishing, and then, get into a little doldrum between the wind, and I would cast a few, and yeah, hopefully this weekend's a little bit different.
Yeah, well, I will tell everybody this: if you want to catch fish and you're not catching them, throw finesse.
Yeah.
Any fish will eat it. Well, bigger, it depends on the hook of the size, but a lot of times that's the secret. But if they're busting on top, I mean, I'm surprised you didn't hit your top water. Like,
Well, the top water I threw out, it was, so long story short is my old rod. I think one of the guides has a chip in it, so he casted it once, and all I see is the, the lure go whoosh, straight out, and I just see the line just kind of spooling in his hand. I go, "What the heck just happened?" He goes, "I have no idea." So I'm like, "Quick, let's paddle and get my lure back. I just bought it." You're talking giant lures, and they cost more. Like I think it was like $14. I'm like, "No, let's go recover that freaking $14 lure, man." But it was too late. It already sank into the abyss, and I said, let me see that. So I switched it out and I put on a top water bait because I saw them busting, and I cast out there like first cast, literally the same thing happened, but luckily top water floats. So we were able to paddle over to it and recover it. And I was like, and this rod is now garbage because I'm not dealing with this crap anymore. It's a 15-year-old rod. And I went with the light setup, but I should have done finesse, man. I had it in my head. I was getting frustrated from paddling and, having to switch out everything that was on there. And boats are important, man.
That's the pain in the ass of a canoe is the paddling. And any wind, you're pretty much, already at a loss. because it's just constant paddling.
Yeah.
It's
lot of
tough.
work.
It's not easy. Yeah, a lot of work. Unless you're like a float trip, you're just kind of floating down the river slowly. I mean, but on a lake, man, especially when that wind kicks up, like that day you and I were out, it wasn't easy. It
No.
was not easy.
But it's easier when you're with two people, and like when I go out by myself on the canoe, it's somewhat difficult because granted I bring a few rods with me that I'm using and I set up everything so that way I know I'm not trying to change things out at the last second, at least not on purpose. That kind of helps you a little bit, but when you have to change something out and you're with someone who's not really who's young, who doesn't really know how to paddle or when to, put the effort into it to keep you in place or keep you from crashing up onto rocks or onto the shore. You got to keep your head on a swivel out there, right? Especially the water's cold. You do not want to flip that canoe. You do not want to go into that water. Granted, it's not a big lake, like I said, so you don't have very far to go to get to shore. But even then, it's not fun. But I will keep everyone posted as to what happens this weekend, and we will try and touch base again on Thursday. This is,
Yeah. Looks like I have a small tournament this weekend, just an open series tournament. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll let you know for sure Thursday.
Sounds good, brother. Brian,
Hey, what
anything
about
going on with
you? You going to fish this weekend or what?
Me? No. Funny enough, I dug out the skateboards and I know some spring swells on its way, so I want to hit the pavement a little bit, carve up, and kind of get my feet used to moving a little bit. So that's my goal this weekend is to work on the surf skate in the front yard.
Plus, I'm also
that's what I got going this weekend.
I'm quasi to blame for Brian not fishing because I ripped my waders and they were cheaper waders, so I borrowed Brian's Orvis waders and I was doing a little bit of wading the other day and I'm like, man, why is my leg cold? Hop out of the water and I just go through giant water stain. I'm like, what the heck, man? Why do these waders always do this? Always in the same spot. So I'm getting Brian's waders repaired, which means I don't have waders, which means that Brian doesn't have waders, which means that trout fishing is not happening anytime soon until Orvis repairs them. And Orvis is great. They're they have a great service center. You just have to ship it to them, and they have their lifetime warranty on them and everything. So always gravy. You broke up.
How do they break?
just the seams, I think. It just
I think so too. You would think, Joe, that they would maybe work in conjunction with some of the surf wetsuit.
You would think because Orvis is not cheap, which that's
no, exactly
at all. Yeah,
and those suits. I mean, they're not dry suits, but I could tell you that my Excel wetsuit doesn't let in water outside of the little thin layer that it lets in. That you're supposed to let in, but
that's what I hear with those Excels that they don't let water in. I agree with you. I think they eventually they would get together and kind of put their heads together, but.
There's some brands out there doing neoprene and everything like that.
But so I had a pair of neoprene gloves, and they were hard. Like, not the same neoprene as a wetsuit. It didn't seem like because I don't know. It just seemed not there yet. I guess.
Yeah, not yet.
So I'm to blame for Brian not fishing this weekend, and that's why he's skateboarding instead of chasing trout. You can start fishing for trout in New Jersey on Thursday. Well, you can fish for trout now. Don't let the people on the forum scare you. Depending upon where you are, just check regulations. But statewide opens up on April 1st. So, for example, my buddy wasn't targeting them. He was targeting bass today, and he was out on the Delaware River and got a beautiful brown trout on bass gear. So he said this thing fought like heck. He thought it was a beautiful little smallie, and it turned out to be a nice little brown trout. So always nice little surprises. But we'll get back out there, Brian, once your waders come back, and I apologize again for that. That's a public apology.
All good.
All right, fellas. Well, we're going to do Thursday, I hope.
Yep,
let's do it.
Thursday. Let's do it.
All right, guys. Take care.
Later, fellas.
Have a good night.
Later.
Bye.